Greetings. This is Captain Henson, and today we will be discussing Bad Batch, Episode 5, Rampage. With me today,
It's CJ Rawl, back again. How's it going, guys?
And Luke Warren once again.
and of course the always handsome Captain Henson. So, first off, the summary of the episode.
Read by me, yours truly. Plot summary of Episode 5. So, hoping to discover who hired bounty hunter Fennec Shand to retrieve Omega, the Bad Batch go to Ord Mantell, where Echo knows a Jedi informant named Sid. She offers to find out about Shand in exchange for their help. So basically, the job that she wants done is that slavers have kidnapped a child named Muchi, and Sid will receive a reward from Jabba if the Bad Batch help her rescue the child, which of course they accept, and they go to the job. So the Bad Batch find the slavers, and then they get captured. And while they get captured, the Omega is still on the ship, and is nearly discovered by the Zygerian slavers while investigating the ship. So she makes her escape, and she tries to help her friends to escape and to rescue Muchi, which we learn is actually not a little kid, but is actually a young juvenile Rancor. But then meanwhile, talking to Sid is a familiar face that we know from a couple of Star Wars movies. And that person is Jabba's right-hand man, Bib Fortuna, in exchange for the reward. And then meanwhile, back with the Bad Batch, they are in the process of being rescued by Omega, who has just been caught and has released the Rancor, Muchi, who, by the way, is not the same Rancor that we see in Return of the Jedi. It's a completely different Rancor, just so y'all know. As stuff happens, they free the slaves that are there, and Wrecker basically takes on the Rancor while it's on its rampage. So after they incapacitate Muchi, they bring her back to Sid's place, where they are met with Bib Fortuna, who takes Muchi, and they claim the reward. So Sid gives the rewards to Hunter, but is unable to learn who hired Shand. She offers to give the Bad Batch more mercenary work in the future. And that's the end of the episode.
Alright, so, thoughts. This episode was very much a side quest. Advancements were made in the plot, but the main plot was standalone, for now at least. It was nice to see Bib Fortuna, because he was nowhere to be seen in TCW, and I have no idea why. So, nice to see him in the art style, and it's just nice to see him. For seeing a Rancor was nice. For people who don't know, we were supposed to see one in the TCW movie, but that scene was cut, so nice to see that here. Having Omega be the one to figure out the individual was Sid was interesting. Very much in the mindset of, and I think back to episode 2 on this, truly wonderful a mind of a child is. Adults aren't always the smartest individuals in the room. And, sometimes kids can just be more attuned to things than adults. After this episode, it started getting the ball rolling in my head about a connection Fennec could have. I'm thinking, it's said here by Sid that Fennec had just started out, but she was really good. So I'm thinking that she may have a connection to Jango Fett, which is why the Kaminoans would hire her. To what extent she knew him, I don't know, but I do think there is a connection there. So it'd be interesting to see if that's actually the case. And it was nice to see members of the Falleen species and the Zygerian slave traders again. I think one of them was voiced by Sam Witwer.
Thinking back to the Zygerian slavers for a second, it actually kind of makes me think of a point you brought up, Henson, when we discussed Cut and Run in the first podcast about seeing Cut again. You didn't think we'd ever see him again. I didn't think we'd ever see the Zygerian slavers again.
Yeah, it was certainly nice to see them pop up again.
Yeah.
Nor did I expect us to see a Rancor.
Nope.
In this series.
I only saw that we were going to get a Rancor from the thumbnail that they have on the Disney Plus thing, and from the angle it had, it looked almost like it was a full-grown size. I didn't know it was going to be juvenile.
Yeah, and Fortuna, I really thought that this was going to be, the Rancor we see him own in the original trilogy. I don't think that one has a name. But then it was said that, this one's a female and that one's male, so Makes you wonder what the hell happened to this one.
Whether it just left Jabba's palace and went out on a rampage, or died prematurely for whatever reason.
Or who knows, it might have went the way of Rada. Just disappeared from the plot.
I guess so. Maybe.
Oh, actually, you know what? That's another thing. Can we see what Rada's doing? Because I know he's been mentioned a few times in the new canon, but do we know what happened to him?
Honestly, I don't know.
He appeared on the odd occasion in TCW after the film came out, but that was it. We haven't seen Rota in adult form.
Okay, this is totally off topic. Just a quick aside. Having Bib Fortuna here kind of got me thinking. Can we see what Rada's doing here? Like, he introduced this character who should be, like, really important, but then we just don't know what happens.
That's a good question. I would be interested to see Rada in a future episode.
Or hell, given the fact that in Mandalorian we have to go back to Tatooine every season,
Basically.
But that's besides the point.
This is actually another case of Omega having to step up to the plate herself and doing it in a much bigger way than she's done before. Because
certainly making herself a full-fledged member of the team.
She's also been given her first piece of armament at the very beginning of the episode in the form of Crosshair's former wrist communicator. And it got on Echo's nerves very, very quickly about the fact that she was treating it more like a toy in terms of her just using it because. But something you got to understand is that, she's a kid, and this is a completely off-topic tangent, but the way we see Omega initially treat the wrist communicator, it's kind of like if a kid is given a really high-end collectible, because kids wouldn't think about treating something like that with care exactly.
Yes, and it's anger-inducing on so many levels.
That and another comparison, it's almost like giving your kid their first cell phone. When you're given it, parents can be very strict about it and saying, like, this is not a toy, it's for emergencies and to keep in touch with your parents and whatnot, which is kind of a common trait that appears a lot in these new Star Wars shows. Of there being like parenthood kind of stuff.
And speaking of parenthood itself, obviously this was something that Henson mentioned in the episode 4 discussion, but it continues further here as well. The Bad Batch, but Hunter in particular being very strict in terms of what in their eyes Omega should be allowed to do. Like that there is a point where they are overlooking the slave camp with their micro binoculars. And Omega's like, what do we do? To which Hunter just says, you stay with the ship. That's an order. To which Omega's just like, yes, sir. And you can tell in her tone of voice it's kind of sarcastic, and that she doesn't really appreciate being left out of the action, which at the same time makes it all the more ironic when her drop-in within the slave camp is what causes the Bad Batch to be freed.
Another thing I liked in the episode, and it was one of those small moments, when Wrecker is fighting Muchi, tire her out at the end. And this is just one of those little things I like in any story, where they are so tired, they are still hitting each other, but they are so exhausted that it has no effect. So it's just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those little moments that I just like to see.
The Rancor and Wrecker, by the end of their fight, they get so silly with each other to where Wrecker, because he's very much a boy at heart, it's kind of like a child just cuddling a pet by the end of it.
Like a kid with his dog, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Certainly the most nimble I've seen a Rancor.
It is a juvenile.
And it's small.
Yeah. What did you think of the moment where the Bad Batch actually realized that the Rancor was named Muchi and not the child who they thought was being rescued by them?
It was quite a twist.
Yeah, at first I thought they were meant to rescue a slave girl.
Mhm.
So the Rancor was definitely a surprise.
Something we haven't really talked about yet is the informant who gives the Bad Batch the assignment in the first place.
Sid.
What did you guys think of her?
She was interesting.
Yeah, she was fun.
Bit of a snarky madam, but we'll ignore that.
Oh, that's what makes her fun. From the sounds of it, we're going to be seeing her at least for the next few episodes.
Seems so.
And on the subject of
Sid.
you guys remember how the episode ends with
Sid.
calling in Hunter to her office, giving him Fennec's identity, and just telling him, I might be able to interest you in a bit more work. You need two key things in these times, friends and money. Mostly money. And that's something else to be mentioned when they accepted the job.
Sid.
Had set the terms that the Bad Batch would receive 30% of the payment. Yeah, bit stingy.
Yeah, well, when you have no other option, you got no other choice.
I suppose. But if you think back again to the end when she's like, a bounty hunter of Fennec's caliber going after you boys, you must be pretty valuable.
Yep.
You know, sort of mocking the Bad Batch's level of skill, I suppose.
Oh, no,
And-
that's definitely meant for... Well, one, it shows that she's smart, because when you're in that kind of business, you have to notice these things. And also, it's just to let them know, don't fuck me over, and I won't fuck you over. One of those deals, I think.
Basically.
Yeah, I guess. And once
Sid.
had made that remark to Hunter about Fennec of all bounty hunters, it seems, going after the Bad Batch, Hunter, he turns back and
Sid.
was like, don't worry, I'm good at keeping secrets. But Hunter just has this disapproving frown on his face at the end of the episode, which is the final shot of the episode.
It
and
is
he's
very
like-
much a case of, you really can't trust anyone. Sid here is certainly good for making money, earning a living, but in terms of being able to trust her, no.
Do you reckon that's why she put the emphasis on money over allies when she talked to Hunter at the end of the episode?
Pretty much. Because like I said, Sid is a smart person. I mean, you can't be in this kind of business without being able to pick up on certain things. And knowing how people work. Okay, so is there anything else that we need to bring up?
Any notable character interactions? Like between the Bad Batch themselves?
Nothing new to say. Still
Yeah,
fun interactions. Bounce well off each other.
Though it is quite interesting that Tech is for once in a position where he can't compare the situation that they were in when the group were enslaved to anything else that they'd faced before.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting to see.
Can't think of anything else. Can you guys think of anything else?
I think that's pretty much it.
Other than, like, Wrecker's return of his headache thing, that's kind of pretty much it, I guess.
From episode 3, we still haven't been given a hint yet as to what that headache could mean. Do you guys have any theories on that?
I would say it has to do with the chip.
I'm thinking that too.
Though I'm surprised then that we haven't had any indication of Wrecker potentially turning evil, if it is his inhibitor chip.
It could just be a red herring, but we'll just
Who
have to
knows?
see.
It could also be a case of, like, them trying that little device thing that Tech was working on in that same episode.
But we still haven't seen the inhibitor chip monitoring device in action yet.
Yeah, that's probably where it's going to, like, come into play, like, eventually soon. Who knows?
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yep.
Still no appearance from Rex, so he'll probably be coming much later on in the series.
Yeah, and for some reason, I actually thought that Rex was going by an alias in this episode.
Yeah.
Like, he was going by the name Sid at first. And I was thinking, could this be Rex? And then they actually show who Sid is. I'm like, okay, never mind.
Actually, what did you think of Sid trying to pass herself off as not being the informant they were looking for at first?
I would say
I
trying
think
to
that's-
test out to see how smart they were.
Yeah.
Oh, so pulling a more stern version of what Yoda did to Luke in Empire Strikes Back.
In a way.
Alright, anything else?
I think I'll actually add this little detail with the Rancor. Since we like brought up Jabba's Rancor and not knowing its name, I actually looked it up, and Jabba's Rancor's name is Patissa. and the one that we know is Moochie. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, the one from the movies is male, and Moochie here is female, so I'm sure you can put the pieces together there.
Yep.
Before we finish, this might come across as a little bit of a controversial statement to the two of you, but I personally don't like the character models for Moochie and Bib Fortuna that much. Like, I think they look a bit too stylized.
Yeah, Bib is just a little bit off-putting. I kind of wish that they kind of like made him look a little more like how he kind of did in episode 1, for instance, or something. But other than that, it's like, it's a small little complaint, I guess.
I mean, I don't see any issue.
I don't know, it's just, to me, the models for Moochie and Bib Fortuna don't look quite as detailed as they probably could be.
I don't see it.
I see where you're getting at, but at the same time, I think it's just kind of, a pretty minor little detail.
But those are literally my only issues with the visuals. Everything else, I think, is really good.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, so, in conclusion, really like this episode. Bit more standalone, but it does set up some interesting things moving forward.
Yeah, this was a decent episode. I look forward to to more episodes, and I'm hoping that we finally get to see Rex again, in this next one probably. But I'm not holding my breath on that yet. So yeah.
For me, given the very immense stakes that the previous episode kind of set up by the end of it, this is not quite how I was expecting episode 4 to be followed up, but it's not a bad episode. Again, I'm holding my hopes out for something a bit more killer next time.
And thus, we yet again come to the end. With us today was...
CJ Rawl, signing off.
Luke Warren signing off, and may the force be with you.
This is Captain Henson, the glorious leader of this podcast, signing off. See ya.